chrome skeleton dragging itself out of fire. Terminator turned a fever dream into the scariest future the 80s built, then made the machine the hero. The people who lived inside it went stranger places, beginning with the machine himself. Cameron invited him to lunch to discuss playing Kyle Reese. Arnold Schwarzenegger spent the entire meal describing how the Terminator should move, blink, and kill, and Cameron walked out realizing he had been sitting opposite the machine. He was 37 when it opened. Engineering himself was already the habit. He'd made his first million in his 20s through bricklaying and Santa Monica property, years before Hollywood told him his accent was too thick and his name unpronounceable, which is exactly why that verdict never stuck. Then came the day after he left the governor's office in January 2011. In a counseling session, he told Maria Shriver he had fathered a child with their housekeeper 14 years earlier, and 25 years of marriage ended there. At 79, with a pacemaker since 2024, he's still shooting action comedies. She lost the hearing in one ear, making Terminator 2 permanently. Linda Hamilton forgot to replace her earplugs before Schwarzenegger fired a shotgun inside a cramped elevator. And Sarah Connor took something from her she never got back. She was 28 for the first film, 34 for the second, and trained 3 months with a former Mossad commando to get there. The body obeyed, the mind didn't. She fought bipolar disorder for over 20 years, through violent outbursts that wrecked her first marriage before a diagnosis and medication finally arrived in her 40s. Her marriage to James Cameron ended in 1999 with a $50 million settlement, and she's been contentedly single ever since, now 69 and refusing surgery because she wants to look her actual age. That mirror scene was never visual effects. It was her identical twin Leslie, who died suddenly in 2020. An accent nearly cost him the whole thing. Michael Biehn arrived at his Terminator audition still carrying a heavy southern drawl from a stage play, and producers rejected Kyle Reese on the spot until his agent forced a second reading in his natural voice. He was 28 when it opened. Linda Hamilton bit his arm hard enough to leave teeth marks during the factory climax, having genuinely lost herself in the terror of the scene. Cameron made him a regular after that. What none of it showed was the drinking, a long, quiet alcoholism running underneath the strongest years of his career until he got sober in 2008 at 52. His third wife, Jennifer Blank, produces his films alongside him now. At 70, he's in demand again, and nobody has ever explained why his characters keep getting bitten on screen. Behind on rent, unable to buy groceries, one casting call from the street. Robert Patrick has said plainly that being cast as the T-1000 saved him from homelessness, and he was 32 when Judgment Day opened in 1991. 7 years before that, he survived a boating accident on Lake Erie, swimming almost 3 hours in freezing water to pull others out, and he came ashore determined to make something of himself. You can see that determination in the performance. He trained himself to fire automatic weapons without blinking once, and sprinted so hard in the dirt bike chase that he caught Edward Furlong's bike and forced Cameron to reshoot it. He married Barbara Hooper in 1990, before any of the success, and at 67 they're still together 36 years on. His younger brother fronts the rock band Filter. That desperate gasping in the death scene was memory, not technique. Years before Terminator 2, Joe Morton had been in a car accident that punctured his lung, and when Miles Dyson lay bleeding with his thumb on the detonator, he reached back for exactly how it felt to fight for air. He was 43 in 1991. The role wasn't written black. He had to push for it, the same way he pushed for every part that let him play intelligence instead of the street stereotypes the industry kept offering black actors that decade. His career is that argument won over and over, ending in an Emmy for Scandal. A military brat raised in West Germany and Okinawa, he lost his own father at 10. Now 78 and remarried since 2017 to the woman he calls his rock. He works as an ambassador for the Innocence Project, fighting wrongful convictions. Millions of people know his voice and would not recognize his face. Earl Bowen played Dr. Peter Silberman, the psychiatrist who spent 3 films insisting the killer robots were delusions. And he was 49 when Judgment Day arrived in 1991. Besides Schwarzenegger, he was the only actor in all 3. Then he stopped. He walked away from on-camera work in 2003 because he felt he had done everything a lens could offer him, and gave the next 20 years to a recording booth, voicing the pirate LeChuck in Monkey Island, and narrating World of Warcraft trailers to a generation who never saw him. The Quiet suited a man who had lost a great deal. His wife Carol died of ovarian cancer in 2001, and he remarried Kathy in 2008. Diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer that autumn, he died in Hawaii in January 2023, aged 81. Playing a bland suburban mother was harder for her than playing a space marine. Jeanette Goldstein, unforgettable as Private Vasquez in Aliens, had to flatten every ounce of her natural energy to become Janelle Voight, John Connor's foster mother, then flatten it further into a dead shark stare once the T-1000 starts wearing her face. She was 31 in 1991, and Cameron liked her enough to skip the audition entirely. Classical training in London preceded all of it. None of it prepared her for what actually changed her life, which was never being able to find a bra that fit. She quit acting in 2009 to open Jeanette Bras for large, busted women, with the slogan that the alphabet starts at D, and her husband Aaron Noble, a painter, co-founded it with her. At 66, she's a business owner first. The shops now run across Los Angeles and Atlanta. Drinking straight from the milk carton was his own idea. Xander Berkeley wanted Todd Voight, John Connor's checked-out foster father, to read as a man with no respect for anyone in that house, which is how one of cinema's great deaths came to involve dairy. He was 35 in 1991, holding the carton perfectly still, while a retractable blade punched through the back of it on cue. Decades of dying, betraying, and turning coward followed. The typecasting bothered him enough that he hunted indie roles purely to prove he had more range than weasels and traitors. He paints and sculpts between jobs, and he's good enough with prosthetics to do the makeup on his own low-budget films. He met Sarah Clark on 24, playing her boss, married her in 2002, and had 2 daughters. He's 70, and Star Wars recently hired his voice. She jokes that she got the job because she had a great scream. S. Epitha Merkerson played Teresa Dyson, the wife who talks Miles into believing 2 strangers about the end of the world, and her reaction to the Terminator peeling the skin off his own arm was so violent in rehearsal that Cameron asked her to pull it back, then asked for more once the cameras rolled. She was 38 in 1991. Television swallowed her whole afterwards. 17 straight seasons on Law and Order, the longest run any black character has had in primetime drama. Her contract had a clause locking her hair into Van Buren's short, practical style, and the day the show ended, she grew out her locks. Diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in her 50s, the disease that killed her father and grandmother, she became a national advocate instead of slowing down. Divorced since 2006 and childless by choice, she's 73 and still shooting Chicago Med. The mullet, the Public Enemy shirt, the dirt bike. Danny Cooksey was 15, playing Tim, John Connor's best friend, and the last normal thing in the kid's life, and he was the seasoned professional of the pair. Edward Furlong had never acted before, so Cooksey took him under his wing, and the two spent every break playing video games together. That friendship is why they look like real friends on screen. He was already famous from Different Strokes and Salute Your Shorts, and he moved almost entirely into voice work after, while fronting a metal band Steve Vai assembled for him in 1992. His marriage to makeup artist Amber Lee lasted more than 20 years before a bitter divorce closed around 2020, leaving him raising 2 kids, one of whom lives with epilepsy. He's 50, sober for years, and singing country now with a band called Shelter Dogs. He had already been nominated for an Academy Award before he ever put on Traxler's badge. Paul Winfield, the weary lieutenant chasing the phone book killer, was only the 3rd black actor in history to earn a Best Actor nomination for Sounder in 1972, and he was 45 when the Terminator opened. In a scene cut from the film, Traxler hands his revolver to Kyle Reese and tells him to protect her, which was the moment the skeptic finally believed. Belief was something he had to ration in his own life. He was gay in an era that would have ended a leading man's career, so he lived in the open closet known to colleagues and never to the public, in a partnership with set designer Charles Gillen Jr. that ran 30 years. When Gillen died in 2002, his health fell apart fast. He was 64 when he died of a heart attack in 2004, and they are buried together. He was supposed to be the Terminator. Cameron's original idea was an infiltrator who looked like an ordinary man, and he painted the concept art with Lance Henriksen's face on it. So Henriksen kicked open the door of the Orion Pictures meeting in full character to terrify the executives. They loved the stunt and hired Arnold anyway, then invented Detective Hal Vukovich for him as a consolation. He was 44. Losing that part is not the biggest thing he ever overcame. He dropped out of school at 12, roamed the country as a vagrant, did jail time, and could not read a word until he was 30, when he taught himself using film scripts, an achievement he rates above his entire career. 3 marriages behind him, he lives alone and makes pottery for months at a stretch because clay does not talk back. He's 86 and refuses to retire. A casting director spotted him sitting on a curb outside a Pasadena youth center. Edward Furlong was 13, had no interest in acting, and became John Connor, savior of mankind in a Public Enemy t-shirt, turning 14 the month before the premiere. He hit puberty mid-shoot, and his voice cracked so badly that Cameron re-recorded and pitch-shifted his lines. Fame arrived with no floor under it. His on-set tutor, 29 to his 15, began a relationship with him that nobody stopped. By the mid-2000s, heroin and meth had taken the career. Then the arrests came, then domestic violence charges. Then in 2013, his ex-wife Rachel Bella won a restraining order in custody of their son Ethan. Getting that boy back is what he says drove the recovery. Meth had rotted out every one of his teeth by 2020, and full implants in 2022 let him smile in photographs again. At 49, he marked 8 years sober in 2026. Before Hollywood, he shared a stage with Raul Julia in Othello and Morgan Freeman in Coriolanus. Castulo Guerra brought that weight to Enrique Salceda, the survivalist friend who hands Sarah Connor her weapons and her truck. And he was 45 in 1991. Arriving from Argentina in the 70s, he found the industry only wanted him for drug dealers. So he pushed back and built a career out of doctors, generals, and decent men, like Enrique instead. It was a fight he never advertised and never lost. Those desert compound scenes were shot near Lancaster in blistering Mojave heat, and what stayed with him was watching Linda Hamilton handle heavy weapons in 100-degree temperatures without a word of complaint. He married production manager Christy Claire Riska in December 1972, and they are still together after 53 years, with 2 children. He's 80, semi-retired, and taking voice roles in podcast drama. He was a truck driver who quit after seeing Star Wars. James Cameron wrote and directed both Terminator films and sold the rights to the first one for a single dollar just to guarantee nobody else could take the chair. He was 30 in 1984 and 36 by Judgment Day. The whole thing came from a fever in Rome, a dream of a chrome skeleton hauling itself out of fire, and he drew the endoskeleton concept art himself. He nearly died for the job on the Abyss, running out of air in a weighted suit and punching a safety diver in the face to reach the surface. 5 marriages later, including 2 years with Linda Hamilton, he's been with Susie Amos for 26. Harlan Ellison sued him over the original and won an on-screen credit Cameron resented for decades. At 71, deep in Avatar 4, he's writing Terminator 7 about artificial intelligence rather than robots gone mad. Skynet was fiction in 1984 and homework by 2026. Which of them changed most? Drop it below and subscribe.